Hi, and welcome back to U.S. History with Mr. Snyder. Today we are going to be getting into the final stages of the Kennedy administration, what he did at home, and finally his untimely assassination. Your learning targets for today are to evaluate Kennedy's domestic programs. Remember, last time we talked about foreign policy, so this time we're going to talk about domestic policy, and assess the impact of the Kennedy assassination. So Kennedy's domestic program, if you're asked that on the test, it's called the New Frontier. Remember, the frontier used to mean things that weren't explored and things that were not known. And so this is Kennedy's term to describe the chance for Americans to do new and great things. And he references this even in his inaugural speech. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And so science and space, he thinks that we can make new progress on those grounds. He wants to stop prejudice and racism, and he also wants to fix the economy, because at the end of the 1950s, we kind of go into a slide after all of that prosperation. And so the economy, we have a recession when Kennedy gets into office. Unemployment is 6%. And America is lagging behind other countries as far as production goes now. And so the solutions for Kennedy, since he's a Democrat, is deficit spending, which means spending more than you have. It means doing things on credit, essentially, in order to get the economy moving. He also increases the minimum wage to $1.25 to try to put more money in people's pockets so they could buy stuff. And he also provides, and the federal government provides, assistance to cities with high unemployment. Other domestic problems. Americans are poor. They're struggling to get by in life. In a book called The Other America by Harrington, he says that 50 million people in the U.S. survive on less than $1,000 per year. And so solutions, in 1963, after all the foreign policy stuff, he begins focusing on issues at home, and he decides to pass, or try to get Congress to pass, some tax cuts, and also try to get Congress to pass a civil rights bill to help with the discrimination problem. And he also enables Robert Kennedy's, his brother's, Justice Department to investigate racial discrimination in the South. And these were aimed at getting Americans out of poverty. Also, we're falling behind in the space race. The Soviets have put a man into space. We do after that. But Soviet Yuri Gagarin is the first man in space. And he's a national hero. So solutions, Kennedy does not want to lose the space race, and he throws massive support behind NASA. And he gives the goal to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And it seems like an enormous goal, like it'll never happen. But he says in a speech, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." And again, that's my Kennedy impression. It's probably the last time I'll get to do it. And later into his term, he is campaigning to run again in 1964. And Kennedy and his wife Jackie are in Dallas on business, but they're treated to a parade. They meet the mayor, they meet the governor. And JFK and Jackie sit in the back of an open-air limousine. They didn't want the bulletproof top on it because it was way too hot that day. And as the car approaches this Texas school book depository building, Kennedy is shot out of the window in the head. And the limo races ahead to the hospital, but it is too late. President Kennedy dies. And so who shot Kennedy? The whole country, or the whole police department in Dallas, is looking for this man, and they find him hiding in a movie theater, and his name is Lee Harvey Oswald. And his palm print is used on he's found on the gun used in the shooting, so he is the one charged with murder. He's a former Marine. He was dishonorably discharged, and he wanted to take his services to the Soviet Union, and he lived in Russia for a little while, but he's rejected by them as well. He's upset by the Bay of Pigs decision, and he is a supporter of Castro. So he has communist tendencies. So the next day, or a couple days later, as Oswald is transferred between jails, a man breaks through here on the right, you can see, and shoots Oswald point blank in the gut. And so they were wondering if this guy had a link to the mob, if Kennedy was killed by mob members because of his stance on labor unions. There's a ton of conspiracy theories out there, but we'll get to the Warren court later that says that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the shooting. And so on the way back to Washington, you can see here President Johnson is sworn in as president aboard Air Force One, and Jackie Kennedy is next to him, and he becomes the president now, President Johnson. And here are some photos of the casket lying at the White House and in the Capitol building, and people paying their respects. Here's the parade out to Arlington Cemetery, where his final resting place is, and there is an eternal flame next to his grave. And here's some famous photos of his children and the child stepping out and saluting as the casket goes by. So that is all I have for section 2. It's a very short section. Fill out your learning targets, know about the Kennedy assassination and Kennedy's domestic programs, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.